It's always fun to gauge player ratings whenever a new FIFA game is on the horizon. After all, EA's system is kinda all over the place when it comes to maintaining balance. With FIFA 23 though, it looks like they're gearing up for a massive downgrade spree, as top players like Messi and Ramos enter the tail end of their careers. So, keep watching to find out who got the short end of the stick. First up, EA nerfs Lionel Messi after a mediocre season with PSG. FIFA's always been one of those games that have a ton of hype and excitement from the fans going into it. What sets it apart from the rest of the pack though is the fact that most of this anticipation isn't even gameplay related. Instead, it's all about the ratings that players get for the season. After all, it's kinda like a reflection of how well they performed during the past year. And honestly, these ratings can sometimes even tell a better story than stats ever could. So, heading into FIFA 23, we knew that EA was bound to drop the nerf hammer on a lot of these players as they underperformed during the 2021-22 season. For instance, Lionel Messi, who's been consistently at the top of the FIFA ratings for over a decade, failed to reproduce his Barca magic in Paris. Don't get us wrong, he still performed pretty well at the PSG kit and even had some stunning international outings with Argentina. It's just that he's set the bar so high for himself over the past 15 years that it feels jarring when he doesn't meet the same standards. So, with his unusual 11-goal return, he's expected to drop down from his 93 ratings. With that said, don't expect it to go down by more than 1 point because he's still Messi. Up next, let's take a look at some big-name losers in FIFA 23. Now, Messi wasn't the only one who didn't meet his potential last season. As a matter of fact, some of the most promising players of the previous season completely tanked this year, which means that they're gonna get pulled down a notch as well. Take Neymar for example. The PSG forward is full of talent and ability, but over the past few seasons, injuries have kinda ruined his run of form and he's struggled to match the hype attached to his name. On top of that, there's the issue of living under Kylian Mbappe's shadow as well, which has definitely taken the spotlight off of him. So, as a result, he's expected to drop out of his usually lofty 90+ rating to a respectable 89. Another player who's had an absolute stinker of a season is of course Chelsea's Romelu Lukaku. The Belgian striker arrived at Stamford Bridge off the back of an incredible season at Inter, which is why he had that massive 100 million price tag on his head too. However, his homecoming dream didn't take long to turn into an absolute nightmare, as he struggled to find his form among all the other political issues at the club. Interestingly enough though, he's only being dropped from an 88 to an 87, which is surprising considering how bad his form's been lately. Now, speaking of bad form, we can't go on without mentioning Eden Hazard, whose downward spiral continued for yet another season. The Belgian forward was easily one of the best players in the world at one point in his career, but with the Real Madrid spell plagued by injuries and fitness issues, he's probably seeing the biggest drop out of everyone on the list. In fact, things are so bad for him that his rating's almost about to go out of the 80s, which honestly sounds absolutely insane. Sadly though, an 85 to 82 downgrade seems appropriate for where he's at in his career, and if he doesn't lace up his boots and get to work, there's probably an even bigger nerf awaiting him in the future. Other than that, some other notable downgrades include players like Harry Maguire, Nicolas Pepe, Marcus Rashford, and John Oblak. Now, let's move on to players in the twilight of their careers. While the majority of the FIFA rankings depend on current form, a lot of them are influenced by the stage of a player's career as well. For instance, if someone's at the peak of their physical capabilities, then they're probably going to get the highest rating of their entire career. And even though there are obviously freaks of nature like Cristiano Ronaldo and Thiago Silva around as well, most players lose their FIFA ratings as they get older. So, with the upcoming season of FIFA 23, we're going to see a lot of iconic names lose their high ratings just because, well, they're old. Giorgio Chiellini, for instance, had a monstrous season in 2021 after he finished up an impressive Euro 2020 campaign with Italy. Heading into the upcoming season though, it seems like all of that mojo's been washed away, as he's had to leave Serie A and settle for MLS instead. As a result, he's going down from an 86 to an 83. Another player who's been marred by age is Sergio Ramos, whose PSG move felt like a bit of a desperate attempt by the Paris club for European glory. After all, he's got that legacy nailed down. But after a lackluster season, it's going to be hard for him to carry on at the highest level because, let's be fair, he just doesn't have the legs for it anymore. Besides, injuries are also catching up to him, which means that he's now in the mid-80s after a very long time. Now, N'Golo Kante is one of those players who aren't exactly old, but don't seem to have a long career playing ahead of them either. We mean, of course, he's still one of the best midfielders in the world. It's just that he's developed a bit of a habit of injuring himself during crucial moments of the season. Obviously, no one can forget that insane Champions League run last year. This year, on the other hand, was a whole other story as the French national struggled to regain fitness throughout the season. And, judging by how much he gets injured these days, it almost feels like his playing time at the top's coming to to an end. So naturally, this is reflected in his FIFA 23 rating as well, which is now expected to dip below 90. Having said that, there's still time to recover for these players. Now, while it's a bummer for all these players to get a downgrade on their FIFA cards, it's not a be-all end-all system. We mean, FIFA's always been an ever-evolving game where initial cards don't actually mean much in the grand scheme of things at all. In fact, current form is what matters, which is why they need to make sure they make a strong start to the season. For context, FIFA 23, much like every other game, will also have two sets of overall stats for these players. The first one's the rating that's assigned when the game comes out, and the second one is the ranking that keeps evolving and changing in tandem with their current form. And, over the past few years, we've seen players who started their season in the mid to low 80s and finished it while almost touching a 90, which is super impressive. Besides, even if they lose a couple of points, it's natural because most pros go through a slump after having a record-breaking season. But, are there any big players who are gaining places in FIFA 23? It's natural to feel sad about players losing their rating in FIFA. But hey, one man's loss is another man's gain. So of course, we've got some players who are raking up all the points to move up in the leaderboard as well. For instance, Darwin Núñez, who's rated 75 in FIFA 2022, had a mega season at Benfica, and they progressed through the Championship League quarterfinals. Plus, he's also got that sweet Premier League boost after joining Liverpool for big money this season. So overall, we expect him to get a massive upgrade into FIFA 23 well into the 80s. Other than that, Christopher Nkunku has also burst onto the scene after his brilliant season with RB Leipzig. In fact, he even got a bunch of Team of the Season cards in FIFA 22, which is why he's in a prime spot to be upgraded to at least 85 in this year's game. And finally, players don't actually like FIFA's rating system. Alright, so the thing is that while people pay a lot of attention to FIFA's yearly stats, the players themselves don't actually pay much heed to it. After all, it almost feels like a bunch of numbers crunched together just to get a final score. Like, we've seen some extremely fast players get a little to no love in their acceleration or sprint speed movement, which is a testament to how subjective these ratings can be. So naturally, the players don't tend to agree with them for the most part. And honestly, these ratings are criticized by fans every single year as well. What do you think though? Does EA need to change its scoring system and base it on the stats? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and we'll see you in the next one.